It begins with a man who looks completely in control, impeccably dressed, confident, untouchable. But within minutes, his name is stolen, his identity erased, and his life quietly marked for death. What follows isn't just a chase across cities and monuments. It's a carefully engineered illusion built from discarded ideas, secret filming, censored dialogue, and a director who thrived on confusion. North by Northwest didn't come together cleanly. It came together dangerously. Today on Iconic TV Rewind, we uncover 30 weird behind-the-scenes and trivia facts about one of Alfred Hitchcock's most iconic films.
Take a little walk.
Well, now, wait a minute.
Get moving.
I haven't finished bidding yet. 3,000. I bid 3,000.
Fact number 1. 6 suits were made to survive Cary Grant. Cary Grant's immaculate appearance in North by Northwest wasn't just the result of good tailoring. It was a carefully engineered wardrobe strategy designed to survive the punishment of a Hitchcock production. In total, 6 suits were created specifically for Grant's role as Roger Thornhill, each serving a different purpose depending on the demands of the scene. The most iconic versions were handcrafted on Savile Row by Arthur Lyons at Kilgore, French, and Stanbury, the same legendary tailor that dressed royalty and heads of state. But those suits were far too valuable to risk during action sequences, so a separate stunt suit was made in Beverly Hills by Taylor Quintino. That way, Grant could be thrown, chased, sweat through cornfields, and dive for cover without destroying garments that cost more than most supporting actors' salaries. The result is one of cinema's great illusions, a man who looks flawless while everything around him falls apart. Fact number 2, the title almost made no sense at all. Before it became one of the most famous titles in film history, North by Northwest went through a series of names that baffled even its own creators. The earliest working title was In a Northwesterly Direction, a phrase so vague and abstract that it sounded more like a shipping forecast than a thriller. Hitchcock then flirted with a far stranger option, The Man on Lincoln's Nose, a reference to a rejected gag involving Mount Rushmore that never made it past the planning stage. Neither title captured the sleek momentum Hitchcock wanted, and even North by Northwest is technically nonsensical. There is no such compass direction. But Hitchcock loved the way it sounded. It felt stylish, mysterious, and slightly off, perfectly matching a story where nothing quite points where you expect it to. Fact number 3. The movie started with only 3 ideas. Unlike most films, North by Northwest did not begin with a completed story, characters, or even a clear ending. Alfred Hitchcock approached screenwriter Ernest Lehman with just 3 disconnected concepts: a case of mistaken identity, a scene set at the United Nations building, and a chase across Mount Rushmore. There was no villain, no MacGuffin, and no explanation for why any of it should connect. Lehman later described the process as building a suspension bridge while walking across it, inventing motivations and set pieces purely to link those 3 ideas together. This unusual approach explains why the film feels like a series of escalating dangers rather than a traditional mystery. The audience, like Roger Thornhill himself, is never allowed to settle. The confusion is the design. Fact number 4. Hitchcock's most absurd idea was shut down by park officials. One of Hitchcock's favorite ideas for the Mount Rushmore sequence was also one of his most outrageous. He imagined Cary Grant hiding inside Abraham Lincoln's carved nostril, only to be betrayed by a sudden sneezing fit that would give away his position. When Hitchcock proposed the scene to park officials, their reaction was immediate and brutal. One official reportedly asked how Hitchcock would feel if Lincoln were having a sneezing fit inside Cary Grant's nose instead. The answer was clear. Absolutely not. The scene was permanently rejected, forcing Hitchcock to abandon one of his most surreal visual jokes. Yet the absurdity of the idea perfectly captures Hitchcock's sense of humor, the constant tension between national monument reverence and playful irreverence that runs throughout the film. Fact number 5. A perfect murder scene was abandoned forever. Among the most chilling ideas never filmed for North by Northwest was a murder sequence set inside a Detroit car factory. Hitchcock and Lehman imagined a car being assembled piece by piece along the production line, accompanied by the mechanical rhythm of the factory floor. When the finished vehicle rolled off the line and a door was opened, the body of a murdered foreman would fall out, fully assembled into the machine itself. Hitchcock loved the concept, calling it one of the most visually elegant murders ever conceived. but no matter how hard they tried, the scene simply refused to fit into the story's momentum. Rather than force it, Hitchcock made the rare decision to let it go. The idea was never reused, a perfect murder left permanently unfinished. Fact number 6, Cary Grant loved the car so much he bought it. The sleek Mercedes-Benz that Cary Grant drives in North by Northwest wasn't just another studio prop. It was a car he genuinely fell in love with. The vehicle was a 1959 Mercedes-Benz 220S convertible, chosen to reflect Roger Thornhill's polished, upper-crust lifestyle before everything collapses around him. Grant enjoyed driving it so much during production that, when filming wrapped, he purchased the car outright. This wasn't a publicity stunt or a studio perk. It was a personal decision from an actor who rarely indulged in flashy excess. The purchase quietly reinforced the illusion the film created, that Thornhill's world of tailored suits, luxury cars, and effortless charm wasn't acting at all. It was simply Cary Grant being Cary Grant. Fact number 7. The most famous blooper was left in on purpose. One of the most talked about moments in North by Northwest wasn't scripted, staged, or even noticed at first, and yet it survived every cut of the film. During the Mount Rushmore cafeteria scene, when Eve Kendall pulls a gun and fires, a young boy seated in the background clearly covers his ears seconds before the shot is fired. He knew what was coming. Hitchcock noticed the mistake immediately, but rather than reshoot the scene endlessly, he chose to leave it intact. Multiple takes had already been done, and the moment didn't disrupt the story's forward momentum. Over time, the boy's anticipatory reaction became one of the most famous background bloopers in film history, a tiny crack in Hitchcock's meticulously controlled world that somehow made the scene feel more real. Fact number 8. Grant was paid extra every time the film ran late. Cary Grant's contract for North by Northwest was already impressive by late 1950s standards, a reported $450,000 salary plus a percentage of the profits, but hidden within that agreement was a clause that made delays very expensive for the studio. Grant was to be paid an additional $5,000 for every single day the production ran over schedule. Hitchcock's ambitious setups, location challenges, and technical experiments caused the shoot to stretch longer than planned, quietly increasing Grant's earnings far beyond the original deal. The irony was perfect. The longer the film took to make, the richer its leading man became. Grant later joked that the delays didn't bother him at all, a rare case where chaos worked entirely in an actor's favor. Fact number 9. Hitchcock filmed the United Nations without permission. Despite his reputation, Alfred Hitchcock was not granted permission to film inside or outside the United Nations headquarters in New York. Rather than abandon the idea, he simply ignored the restriction. Hitchcock parked a truck across the street, concealed a camera inside it, and secretly filmed Cary Grant walking toward the UN building. The footage was captured quickly and discreetly with no official authorization. Interior scenes were recreated on sound stages, but the exterior shots were real. Stolen moments of genuine New York life smuggled into the film. It was a rare moment where Hitchcock himself behaved like one of his own characters, operating just outside the rules, trusting that the result would justify the risk. Fact number 10. His mother was only 7 years older than him. One of the film's most amusing casting tricks involves Roger Thornhill's overbearing mother, played by Jessie Royce Landis. In reality, Landis was born in 1896, making her only 7 years older than Cary Grant, who was born in 1904. The illusion works because Landis delivers the role with such sharp authority and maternal confidence that the age gap disappears entirely. Hitchcock leaned into the dynamic, emphasizing Thornhill's boyish helplessness whenever his mother was present. The result is one of the film's funniest running gags, a sophisticated man undone not by spies or assassins, but by a woman who is technically almost his contemporary. Fact number 11. The crop duster scene was an optical illusion. The most famous sequence in North by Northwest, Cary Grant stranded in the open countryside as a crop duster turns into a weapon, was never filmed the way audiences think it was. Despite the illusion of a wide, empty Indiana landscape, the scene was constructed in pieces. The plane itself was filmed near Bakersfield, California, far from Indiana farmland. Cary Grant, meanwhile, performed his reactions on a studio set, diving into a fake ditch as previously filmed footage of the aircraft played behind him. The genius of the sequence lies in its restraint. Hitchcock deliberately avoided music, crowd noise, or obvious danger at first, allowing unease to build slowly. The attack feels random, exposed, and deeply unsettling precisely because it looks so real, even though it was assembled from fragments. Fact number 12. The infamous train tunnel ending was not in the script. Ernest Lehman's screenplay originally ended on a quiet, conventional note. The train simply headed into the distance, and the story concluded. Hitchcock found this unsatisfying. Instead, he added one of the most famous visual jokes in cinema history, the sudden cut from Cary Grant pulling Eva Marie Saint into an upper berth to a train plunging into a tunnel. The implication was unmistakable, and for 1959, shockingly bold. It was Hitchcock's way of slipping sexual humor past the censors while maintaining plausible deniability. Nothing explicit was shown, nothing spoken aloud, and yet the meaning was perfectly clear. It was one of the director's most mischievous victories over the production code. Fact number 13. Magnum Oil was a private family joke. The name Magnum Oil seen on the fuel truck during the crop duster sequence wasn't chosen at random. Patricia Hitchcock later revealed that her husband worked for a company called Magnum Oil at the time the film was made. Hitchcock, notorious for planting personal jokes and private references into his films, slipped the name into one of the movie's most tense moments. To audiences, it meant nothing. To Hitchcock, it was a quiet wink, a reminder that even in his most suspenseful sequences, he never stopped entertaining himself. Fact number 14. The Mount Rushmore set was too convincing. Although the climax of North by Northwest appears to take place on Mount Rushmore itself, the vast majority of the sequence was filmed on an elaborate replica built in Los Angeles. Hitchcock's art department recreated the monument so convincingly that many viewers believed the actors had actually been filmed climbing the real faces. The illusion worked too well. Government officials, eager to distance themselves from the dangerous imagery, demanded that MGM remove the end credit, thanking them for cooperation. Cooperation that, in reality, never happened. The studio complied. The film remains one of the most convincing examples of cinematic geography that never truly existed. Fact number 15. A single line almost got the film censored. One of Eva Marie Saint's most memorable lines originally crossed a line the censors were unwilling to ignore. Her character was scripted to say, "I never make love on an empty stomach," a sentence that raised immediate red flags. To satisfy the production code, the line was altered in post-production to, "I never discuss love on an empty stomach." The change was subtle, but the implication remained unmistakable. Hitchcock understood exactly how far he could push language without triggering outright bans. The revised line slipped through censorship while preserving the character's sensual confidence. Another example of Hitchcock winning the battle without ever declaring war. Fact number 16. Saint's mother helped her secure the role. Eva Marie Saint's casting in North by Northwest wasn't sealed in a boardroom. It was shaped by a mother's sharp observation. After an initial meeting with Hitchcock that went well but led nowhere, Saint received a phone call from her mother who had noticed something crucial. Hitchcock had a fondness for women dressed in understated beige, often accented with white gloves. Taking that advice to heart, Saint returned to meet Hitchcock again, dressed exactly that way. She later credited this subtle transformation with changing how Hitchcock saw her. The role soon followed. It was a reminder that in Hitchcock's world, image wasn't superficial, it was destiny. Fact number 17. The opening titles invented a new visual language. The opening sequence of North by Northwest wasn't just stylish, it was revolutionary. Saul Bass designed the title sequence using kinetic typography, where text moves dynamically across the screen, synchronized with architecture and motion. At the time, this approach was virtually unheard of. The shifting grid of lines transforming into the reflective surfaces of New York skyscrapers immediately establishes speed, urban tension, and disorientation. Long before the story begins, the audience is already in motion. The sequence didn't just introduce a film, it introduced a new way movies could speak visually before a single line of dialogue was spoken. Fact number 18. James Stewart was passed over with surgical precision. James Stewart desperately wanted North by Northwest to be his fifth collaboration with Hitchcock. But Hitchcock knew Stewart's persona had changed. He was no longer the glib, carefree figure audiences once knew. He carried weight, melancholy, and gravity. Roger Thornhill needed charm, speed, and surface-level confidence. Rather than reject Stewart outright, Hitchcock waited until Stewart committed to another film, Bell, Book, and Candle, before officially casting Cary Grant. It was a calculated move designed to spare feelings while ensuring the film's tone stayed light on its feet. Hitchcock understood that casting wasn't about talent. It was about chemistry with the illusion. Fact number 19. Cary Grant hated the script, and that helped. Halfway through production, Cary Grant approached Hitchcock with a blunt assessment. The script made no sense. He admitted he couldn't follow the story and didn't understand where it was going. Hitchcock was delighted. That confusion, he explained, was exactly what Roger Thornhill was supposed to feel. The character is constantly thrown into situations he doesn't understand, chased by forces he can't see, and expected to survive a plot that never pauses to explain itself. Grant's discomfort became performance. Hitchcock didn't need clarity, he needed authenticity. Fact number 20. The entire film was inspired by a dead man. The central premise of North by Northwest, a man mistaken for a secret agent who doesn't exist, was inspired by a real World War II deception known as Operation Mincemeat. The British intelligence operation involved planting false documents on a corpse, convincing the enemy that a fictional officer was real. Journalist Otis L. Guernsey Jr. suggested the idea to Hitchcock, who immediately recognized its cinematic potential. By removing the war context and replacing it with espionage fantasy, Hitchcock turned a real act of wartime trickery into a modern myth. At its core, North by Northwest is about identity as a weapon, and how easily reality bends when everyone believes the lie. Fact number 21. Bernard Herrmann wrote the score in just 6 weeks. Bernard Herrmann's score for North by Northwest is relentless, driving, and instantly recognizable, and it was written under intense time pressure. Herrmann composed the entire score in just 6 weeks, working at the kitchen table in his Los Angeles home while life unfolded loudly around him. Children ran through the house, distractions piled up, and deadlines loomed. Yet out of that chaos came one of his most kinetic compositions, built around pulsing rhythms and Latin-inspired motifs that never allow the film to settle. The music doesn't simply accompany the action, it propels it forward, creating momentum even in moments of stillness. Herrmann later considered it one of his finest achievements, a rare fusion of urgency and elegance. Fact number 22. One actor appeared in more Hitchcock films than almost anyone else. Leo G. Carroll's presence in North by Northwest marked his 6th collaboration with Alfred Hitchcock, a distinction shared by very few performers. Carroll appeared in Rebecca, Suspicion, Spellbound, The Paradigm Case, Strangers on a Train, and finally North by Northwest. Hitchcock trusted Carroll implicitly, often casting him as authority figures, professionals, and men who seemed dependable, even when they weren't. His calm demeanor and precise delivery made him the perfect vessel for Hitchcock's controlled tension. Only a handful of actors appeared in more Hitchcock films, and Carroll's repeated presence became a quiet signature for audiences who knew what to look for. Fact number 23. Martin Landau made a radical character choice. Martin Landau's portrayal of Leonard wasn't just menacing, it was deliberately layered. Landau chose to play the character as a man in love with his employer, Philip Van Damme, a decision that was never explicitly stated in the script. His logic was simple. Leonard's obsessive hostility toward Eve Kendall made more sense if it was fueled by jealousy rather than loyalty. Hitchcock approved the choice, allowing Landau to communicate the subtext entirely through gesture, tone, and restraint. The performance was so convincing that James Mason spent years fielding questions about whether his character was bisexual. Landau's choice added psychological depth at a time when such nuance was rarely acknowledged on screen. Fact number 24. The screenplay took a full year to write. Despite the film's breathless pacing, North by Northwest was not written quickly. Ernest Lehman spent an entire year developing the screenplay, wrestling with structural problems, extended periods of writer's block, and the challenge of making disconnected ideas feel seamless. He even traveled to Mount Rushmore to better understand the geography of the film's climax, a sequence that would ultimately be filmed almost entirely on a replica. Lehman later described the script as his attempt to create the Hitchcock picture to end all Hitchcock pictures, a conscious effort to distill everything the director did best into a single, perfectly engineered narrative. Fact number 25. Hitchcock's cameo was perfectly timed. Hitchcock's trademark cameo appears during the opening title sequence, set amid the chaos of New York commuters rushing home. As the crowd surges forward, Hitchcock hurries toward a bus and misses it by seconds. The moment occurs precisely as his name appears in the opening credits. It's brief, perfectly timed, and symbolic. Even the man orchestrating the chaos can't quite keep up with the momentum he's created. It's one of Hitchcock's most elegant self-references, gone almost before you can register it. Fact number 26. Martin Landau was cast in a single sentence. Martin Landau didn't audition in the traditional sense. Alfred Hitchcock attended the Broadway play Middle of the Night to see Edward G. Robinson, but Landau's performance quietly stole his attention. After the show, Hitchcock invited Landau to MGM, where he laid out the entire project for him: storyboards, designs, and the full scope of the film. As they flipped through the material, Hitchcock casually turned to Landau and said, "You're now Leonard." That was it. No screen test, no negotiation. Hitchcock trusted his instincts completely, and Landau walked out with one of the most psychologically complex roles in the film. Fact number 27. The crop duster scene is a masterclass in editing. The crop duster sequence isn't just memorable, it's mathematically precise. The entire scene runs 9 minutes and 45 seconds and contains exactly 133 editorial cuts. That means the average shot lasts just over 4 seconds. Editor George Tomasini crafted the sequence with surgical control, tightening the rhythm as danger escalates without ever confusing the viewer. The editing turns open space into suffocating tension, proving that suspense doesn't require darkness, crowds, or music, just timing. Decades later, the scene is still studied as one of the purest examples of visual suspense ever filmed. Fact number 28. MGM tried to cut 15 minutes and failed. As production wrapped, MGM executives demanded that North by Northwest be shortened by 15 minutes to keep the runtime under 2 hours. Hitchcock didn't argue. He checked his contract. When his agent confirmed that Hitchcock had absolute final cut authority, the conversation ended immediately. Not a single minute was removed. Hitchcock understood that the film's momentum depended on its breathing room. Cutting it down would break the illusion. It was a rare moment where a director held firm against the studio and won completely. Fact number 29. Hitchcock personally curated Eva Marie Saint's image. Dissatisfied with the studio's costume designs for Eva Marie Saint, Hitchcock took matters into his own hands. He accompanied her to Bergdorf Goodman in New York, sitting as mannequins paraded past while he selected her wardrobe piece by piece. Hitchcock later joked that he behaved like a man keeping a woman, and Saint playfully referred to him as her only sugar daddy. But beneath the humor was control. Hitchcock believed wardrobe was psychology, and every outfit Saint wore was designed to project elegance, mystery, and danger in equal measure. Fact number 30. A legendary writer called it the best script ever written. Science fiction author Philip K. Dick, a master of paranoia, false identities, and fractured reality, called the screenplay of North by Northwest the best ever written. Coming from a writer obsessed with themes of deception and manufactured truth, the praise carried weight. The film was recognized as a classic almost immediately upon release, praised for its construction, tone, and impossible balance of elegance and dread. What began as 3 disconnected ideas became a blueprint for the modern thriller, one that still hasn't been surpassed. North by Northwest wasn't just a thriller, it was a controlled illusion, stitched together from half ideas, hidden jokes, studio battles, and Hitchcock's quiet defiance of every rule he was told to follow. What emerged was a film that moves like a dream, never stopping to explain itself, never letting you feel safe. If you enjoyed uncovering the strange truths behind this classic, make sure to like the video, subscribe to Iconic TV Rewind, and let us know in the comments which Hitchcock film you want us to open next, because some movies are meant to be watched once, and others are meant to be dissected.